Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to Homunculus Gaming, and today we will be looking at Torchlight 2. Torchlight 2 takes place a few years after Torchlight 1, in which the alchemist gets corrupted by the Ember Blight and proceeds to destroy the town of Torchlight. You then embark on a quest to stop him and restore the balance to the world's 6 elements. But you're probably not here for the story, so let's just get into the gameplay. There are 4 classes in Torchlight. There's the Outlander, a gunslinger, kind of ranged attacker. The Ember Mage, a spellcaster, the Berserker, a two-handed barbarian, and the Engineer, who can either tank, two-handed DPS, or use pets to do his deeds. If you haven't noticed already, Torchlight 2 is a action RPG, which generally means in this genre you're going to do an awful lot of dungeon crawling. But thankfully, when you're wading your way through the endless waves of enemies, you will see that combat is extremely satisfying. Abilities have superb sound design and impact and real force behind them when they hit your enemies. Additionally, most baddies will either explode into blood, guts, gore, or goo, or into piles of cash for you to collect. I'm really glad they got combat ground down to a very fine point on this game before they released it, since you do spend an awful lot of time in combat and blowing endless waves of enemies up. You want what you're doing to be extremely satisfying and something you can do over and over and over. I've invested quite a few hours into this game to be informed on doing this video, and I'm still extremely satisfied when I wade in there and cleave a bunch of enemies and they all explode. It's just something about it is so satisfying. Fortunately though, in this genre, the most dangerous thing for these types of games is repetition. You often spend hours at a time spamming the exact same moves and just getting different armor sets with slightly different variants in environment and enemies. I think I would have been okay with this monotony and just repetition of the same thing over and over and over if I was putting points when I leveled up into a unique and interesting leveling up system. But Torchlight 2 seems to have fallen a bit behind the curve when it comes to leveling up and character development. Each class has 3 trees, each with 3 passive skills you can put points into, and 7 abilities. But the abilities and passives unlocked in this tree aren't unlocked in any sort of dynamic way. It's static. At level 28 you get this one, and then at level 42 you can choose to put a point in this one if you want. This is not really that interesting to me, and I would have been much more engaged if I had some sort of cool ability system to put things into, which I was looking forward to leveling up instead of just being like, this is starting to get old, endlessly grinding for gear. If you are a gear junkie and love seeing those drops every so often, you're going to be completely enthralled because there is a bunch of gear that drops in this game. And by a bunch, I mean almost too much. Someone who hasn't invested a bunch of time in ARTSs might be slightly dissuaded at the amount of gear that is exploding out of enemies for no apparent reason, because the amount of time you spend looking through your inventory and comparing items seems a little bit too high. It would have been nice if all the gear was consolidated into one time when I got it, so I could spend that time just looking through and comparing and seeing what works, instead of killing a couple mobs in the dungeon and then open up the inventory, spend 30 seconds looking at an item, okay, I don't want that, put it in my pet's inventory, continue on, kill another mob, drops an item, compare, go, kill, compare, kill, compare. It just would have been nice if it was all at once, and then I can spend that time comparing. And yes, I did mention a pet. In Torchlight 2, you get your own little pet, which you can choose from a variety of different skins at the start of the game, and he will follow you around on all your adventures. Your pet participates in combat, attacking your enemies, as well as having a massive inventory which you can fill up with junk and items that you don't want to carry around, and fill up your own inventory. You can also fish out of fishing pools around the world, items that can buff up your pet and give him special abilities. For instance, if you fish up a certain spider egg and feed it to your pet, he will become a spider, and his attacks will heal you or slow your enemies down for you. There are even items and armors within the world that can buff up your pet and make him do more damage. For me personally though, the pet combat system didn't really seem to fit at all in the Torchlight world. In Torchlight 2 and in RPGs in general, I want to be a hero. I want to be a badass. I don't want to be a everyday normal person. That's why you play an RPG, is to be an awesome hero that slays dragons with a sword in one arm and a mace in the other. Despite the fact that I have a ferret following me around called Dr. Doomsday, is incredibly badass in itself, I don't want a ferret, or any pet for that matter, helping me destroy my evilest enemies. I want to be doing it myself. I want to be the sole hero in the spotlight. That being said, it is incredibly convenient to just dump all your items on your pet and then send him back to the store, and he'll even pick up items that you want for you, such as potions or scrolls, on his way back. This maximizes your time in the field, so you don't have to endlessly go back and forth between town to unload your vast array of plunder and loot during your expeditions. The convenience is awesome, don't get me wrong, but Pet Combat just didn't sell me. I want to upgrade my own hero. I want him to be super strong and magical and completely awesome. I don't want to upgrade and buff a pet that follows me around. For me personally, I just dump health steal items on my pet so he can auto attack away and help me that way, but he often, aside from that, just ends up being a breathing shopping cart. Nothing more than just a little thing on my screen that follows me around and does all my shopping for me when I'm out and about. And while you're out and about, you'll encounter many quest givers around the world. Unfortunately, most times these quest givers are parked directly in front of a dungeon, and then they usually give you the same old spiel about how their father went in there or something else went terribly awry that they can't fix themselves. So then you end up going in the dungeon that is directly behind them, solving their problems, coming out, getting a quest reward. It wouldn't be a problem if this was just one or two quests, but it seems almost every single side quest is like this in some form. It would have been really nice to see some variety in how you get quests and how quests are accomplished. At the end of these dungeons, most bosses are in their own little predetermined arenas, where there's a transition zone at the end of the dungeon, where you step on a portal and it takes you just to a little walkway with another portal at the other end, and then you walk into that, and then there's the closed arena with the boss, and you proceed to fight it to the death. It would have been really cool to see some more creativity based around boss fights, as opposed to just locking them in an arena. Maybe a boss sporadically pokes at you, or attacks you every so often incrementally as you proceed through a dungeon. Maybe a boss that is even tougher than normal, but stands in the middle of a exploration zone, so you can maybe avoid him, or choose to take him on when you're strong enough. I'm not asking that they go completely off the wall and every single boss is different, but just some sort of different variety in quests and bosses, so every single thing doesn't seem the same grind over and over and over. But that variety in bosses is only applicable to how they attack you, not what the bosses are. Every single boss that I've encountered so far seems very unique aesthetically as well as in mechanics, and they all feel very, very dangerous and a real threat to you in the world. This is something they did exceptionally well. When you're going through a marsh the entire level and then you come to your final boss fight, it's in a marsh with a zombie mutant monster with tons of other smaller ones on the ground, and then he'll devour these when he gets low on health and vomit up acid at you and that sort of thing. And then there's other ones when you're going through a sand level where there's Sphinx-esque kind of Egyptian monsters and bosses for you to fight. The zones in different chapters feel very cool and different from each other. It doesn't feel like the same trudge through the same areas. Even the music, hardly noticeable most times, is very atmospheric and draws you further into the world. There's also a cool feature called phase beasts. When it does become too monotonous going around and about, you'll occasionally find a ghosty, sort of ethereal monster of some sort that you can kill, and upon its death it drops a portal. You can choose to go into this portal, and then there will be a sort of mini-game that happens. If you do very well and kill many monsters, or perform the task you're required to very well, you get much more loot, but if you screw it up, then you don't get as much and as many shiny things. This is stellar for breaking up the monotony and making you appreciate the normal grind through the world much more. It is the breath of fresh air that you occasionally get when you get to do these little mini games. They're a blast, and they're very well designed. They're fun to do, and they give you some pretty sweet loot as well. But there's still one major thing to talk about when discussing Torchlight, and that is the price point. And it is 20 bucks. Yep, 20 bucks will get you this game. at the time of this recording. Torchlight isn't without its problems. It can be extremely grindy, which kind of comes with the ARPG style, and if you're not that in-depth into it, then you're probably going to get burned out a little bit quicker than other people. But for 20 bucks, it is a ridiculous steal right now, and something that you should definitely have in your Steam library if you're even marginally interested in it. If you do get burned out quickly, then just pick up a couple friends and spend every so often playing through with each other. Pick classes that complement each other, do builds. It'll be harder, and you can go through the world together, and it'll be a much more engaging and exciting experience with another person. I do really wish that there were some things tweaked and moved around in the world to make it more engaging, and some more depth and character development and armors and stuff like that, but it's really hard to argue against a $20 game, especially since it was $20 when it first came out. As time goes on, it's most likely going to go on sale and drop quite drastically. So eventually you're going to be able to pick up this game for a very, very low price, and something that will be absurd. All in all, Torchlight 2 is a fantastic step and venture into the ARP genre. It's dawned on me a little bit recording this that maybe it shouldn't be a game that I try and plow through. A game that I just sit down, blaze through, try and get as much done and see what the game is about. I should sit back and just play it a little bit at a time. Maybe play a couple hours, go play something else, come back a few days later, not sit down and just burn yourself out. The grindy gameplay that is inherent with ARPGs just isn't really conducive to that kind of environment. So maybe if you do pick up this game, just take it slow. Don't burn yourself out. It is a good game, just pace yourself, I would say. But if you have picked up Torchlight 2, what are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? How do you think it could be fixed? Leave me a comment below, and I'd really like to know what you think about Torchlight 2. Regardless, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate your like or favorite. You don't have to, but it helps me out a bunch, and I appreciate it a ton. If you want more Homunculus gaming, then you can click subscribe and never miss another video and stay up to date on all the latest gaming content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.